This is Practically Culture, a podcast devoted to TV, movies, sometimes video games, and other pop culture. I'm your host, Logan Bowe, now podcasting from Lehigh, and I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only Bob Caswell in the Bay Area. How are you, Bob?
Hey, doing great. How's it going with you?
Just hanging out. You know me.
Nice.
Welcome to our main show. This week, we review Searching. We also have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. If you like what you hear, look for us on the usual podcast app at practicalculture.com and on YouTube. We recommend you check it all out if you're into the show. It's TV, it's movies, sometimes video games. It's Practically Culture. Let's rock. Oh, man, it is good to be back, Bob. Also, happy Labor Day.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's a holiday today.
Yeah, I mean, not to assume you observe, of course. I don't, based on your beliefs, I don't want to assume.
I appreciate that. I mean, I've been meaning to talk to you about my abstinence from this holiday because of what it means to me by abstaining. Just kidding. No, it's a holiday that I'm going to be offensive the other direction. I always forget about this one. Sorry, but I like the day off. It's nice.
Any plans this weekend to party up? That's the way to celebrate American government holidays, yeah?
Mostly I just use it as an excuse to have another bottle of wine. But otherwise, actually, I've been catching up with work over the weekend, which is kind of boring and not interesting. But yeah, drinking a bottle of wine.
Laboring on Labor Day weekend. All right. Well,
yeah.
Hopefully you've been doing it half drunk. Not then, unless your employees are listening, then I hope you haven't.
No, of course not. Yeah, but sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, ready to get to this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Searching. After his 16-year-old daughter goes missing, a desperate father breaks into her laptop to look for clues to find her. Starring John Cho and Deborah Messing, directed by Anish Chaganty, written by Chaganty and Sev Ohanian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing those right, but I believe it is both of their first feature. I heard a little podcast interviewing Chaganty, and I think that's right. Anyway, hit us with an interview, Bob.
Okay, here goes Searching. A unique spin on the mystery suspense missing person story, told almost completely through the lens of the tech devices and software we all know. The pacing was good, and what could have been just a gimmick wasn't. I'm going to recommend this one, Logan. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. It got to me. I liked it.
All right. Here's my mini review. Compelling and well-performed enough that it transcends the gimmick, but it's still mostly noteworthy because of the gimmick. 3.5 out of 5.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the gimmick, shall we?
Yeah. I mean, the gimmick is basically that everything happens on screens. And I don't mean to be dismissive when I say gimmick, but it's certainly like a very prominent device that they're using.
Right.
And in fact, we really only see, I mean, I guess I don't know if I want to say 100%, but for the most part, we only see even the main characters, like when they're FaceTiming. So like see them in the corner or whatever, or if it's just like their screen showing what they'd be looking at. And it's actually pretty interesting and pretty cool. And I think that it is sort of effective and interesting. I don't mean to be derogatory when I say gimmick, but it's, like I say, a pretty like in your face, that's how they're playing it sort of thing.
Right. I totally agree. And if I were to criticize it, I would say kind of the problem with it is it almost assumes that we're more tech savvy than we are. Not that we don't understand what's going on the screen. What I mean to say is, does anybody really use screens exactly as they did in the movie to make it so that the movie could be all screens? Like, I don't actually use FaceTime for every conversation, even though it's available to me as I'm out and about. Or I don't actually, like at work, I don't video conference with my colleagues because we're all like annoyed about showing each other on screen if we don't have to. And most of the time you get work done on a call the same way if you just have it with audio. So that was the only thing standing in my way as I was projecting my usage of technology onto this and thinking like, maybe I'm not millennial enough, but I use technology effectively in this way, like 60% of the time, not 99% of the time.
Well, I mean, it's not like you have a job in Silicon Valley at a tech company, so I don't know if we can go by you, Bob.
Well, I didn't want to say anything, but yeah, even given my circumstances, this was like, wow, it would be really great for Apple, Google, Facebook, everyone, if this is literally how everyday life was 100%. But
I got you. So it seemed like it was dialed up a little bit. But let me ask you this. Do you think it's just maybe not common that people do that? Or is it like implausible that someone would do that?
No, that's a good distinction. I don't think it's implausible. I think probably some people do this, and maybe I'm again projecting because I don't have good numbers, but I'd say for most people this came across as dialed up, and they had to sort of get through that barrier of like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with these technologies, but I don't use them like hardcore like this. And once I got over that, then actually it's funny that I'm the one who's bringing up the first criticism in a way, because I actually think I like this movie more than you did. And that didn't stand in my way for more than maybe 15 minutes. And then it just was like, I'm going to just, leave that aside.
Yeah, for me, I felt like it was in the realm of the plausibility spectrum or something, you might say. I don't know.
Sure.
And it didn't strike me as a particularly strong amount of suspension of disbelief that I have to go through for a movie like this, that part of it. One thing I just want to comment on, I don't know if I have a take built up around it, but I just noticed how everything in the past was like this old Windows XP computer.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they like switched completely to the Mac ecosystem. For one, I felt like it was awfully friction free. Like they just automatically had knew how to go from one to the other, which doesn't usually happen.
Right.
But were they also trying to make some sort of statement? I couldn't remember.
I'm glad you brought this up because I actually loved this. So for like tons of reasons. So first of all, the movie starts with such a wonderful recap of a child growing up into the world of technology with the two parents helping her and capturing all those adorable moments with music lessons and that sort of thing. And it is all very Windows based.
Windows XP in particular,
specifically,
right?
yeah. And they do make some funny jabs with like you click on the wrong thing and you get a million pop-ups or whatever. or later when he has to go back to the Windows computer, there's like a Norton pop-up that's like, you haven't run Norton antivirus for like 623 days. Like, thanks for that. It did just to me feel really relevant is maybe the wrong word, but like really on point. Like it made me realize, yes, we're getting this montage of story in the past because there was a lot of dialogueless cutting from scene to scene because they're sort of showing, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler because it's in the beginning of the movie, how this family had to deal with a tragedy, and the tragedy being the mom suffering from cancer. And I'll leave it at that. You want to just watch this montage of the past. And they do it all through the tech again, but the tech of that time, which is the tech of my time. And so I thought they got it all right. And then when they switched to the Mac ecosystem, that also worked for me too, because I switched about the same time. So I'm like, this movie is like really, this is how people lived life the last decade of tech. And it's like, well, Bob, that's how you did. And it just so happens to coincide. But I thought the switch, even though it was fairly seamless, made sense because they just sort of fast forwarded into the future and it's not about tech problems. It's just like Apple is more prevalent now, and Windows XP was way more prevalent then. And it is a statement of, again, probability of how, me being just one anecdote notwithstanding, it is likely that a lot of people started with Windows XP but are probably in the Mac ecosystem now, especially with iPhones and those sorts of things too.
Yeah, I think it actually did some good storytelling work too, just so you could tell which, if they were in the past, or the old computer or the new computer, based on which, even though for me, I know this will come as a surprise to you and everyone else, I'm iconoclastic enough that I avoid the Apple ecosystem as a matter of principle.
I love it. Yeah. So the movie must have been really jarring. Logan's trapped in this ecosystem that he hates and doesn't use. It's like, why are there no Google products? I mean, they use Google search here and there, but like none of the like Google other things.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that wasn't a hard thing for me to get over. I just a thing I noticed.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess that's all to say that the device of making everything as though you're watching the screen that you're using or the characters are using, I think they pulled it off pretty well.
They did, and I would say I was emotionally connected to a lot of these characters too, what they were going through, and I was surprised by that because I thought at first the gimmick would get in the way of the emotional connection. But like I said, after about 15 minutes, the story just kept going, and they kept finding useful ways to keep the gimmick alive, but kind of cheating a little bit, right? Like they would show things from the TV, which is like a newscast, to give information that way. Or at one point, somebody needs to hook up a security system that has video footage, and this is the way to tell the story that's not through a computer screen, but still a screen of some kind. So they just kept it alive, and it didn't bother me in any way once I gave into it at the beginning.
And there are a couple things that I found really delightful, like when you're thinking about what to say and you type something in a text box, but you're like, no, I'm going to rethink that, and you back up, but then you type it and you change your mind. It was a good way to sort of let us in on the heads of the people sometimes. So that was something that worked a lot better from the screen device.
Totally.
So yeah, that worked well. You said you felt connected to the characters. I think a lot of that was probably due to some of the acting. John Cho is sort of the main heavy hitter acting wise here. And
yeah.
I thought he was good. He's basically this obsessed dad on his computer, doing everything to find clues, maybe sometimes more than he should. But yeah, it's I guess it's a little fantasy for the geek in all of us. Like, well, I know about computers, but it's not like coding. It's just like computersing.
Yeah.
But what can I do? I can figure something out. And he did all that, and he was fairly successful.
Yeah, he was. They showed him as a project manager or doing something with his day job. I don't know what it was, but it was vaguely like it could be connected to IT and consulting or something.
And they are in, Silicon Valley. I thought it was funny. The Silicon Valley Police Department was the police department.
Yeah, that's a little made up, but I think it actually works because it sounds plausible, even though there are cities in Silicon Valley. Like, there's no Silicon Valley.
And Silicon Valley is not per se a municipal,
right.
thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it was mostly based in San Jose, and even some of the maps that they showed, I was like, oh, in the roads that they're talking about, I'm like, I know all of this. This is, and so basically the story is that, and it ties into that a little bit, his daughter takes off and goes out of town, and we're not sure if she's trying to run away or whatever. And then he's trying to like use tech to find things about her past because he thinks he knows her, and then he wants to like reach out to her friends. But then does she have any really close friends as a theme? And does he really know his daughter? And so in the process of that, they're also showing a lot of screens and maps of basically where I live. So that was kind of fun. What did you think of all the themes and the well, I guess we'll get to the twists and turns without talking about them, but there were certainly a lot of things that were unknowns that then became known, and we're kind of trying to pull one-offs on you a little bit.
I like the detective work aspect of it. One of the biggest ones for me was, as you mentioned, trying to figure out if she had friends or not, and the way he did that through social media and making deductions, and then confronting the possibility that, well, maybe she doesn't have any friends. I found that actually pretty powerful, both the way we got to it and the realization as it dawns on him and us. Another one, I thought, another plot ride that the story took us on was I liked when the trail leads to David's brother, to John Cho's character's brother, and I was brought along on the like catastrophizing when he has certain clues and he like makes inferences and he overreacts with them.
Yeah,
and also the way that plays out.
Yeah,
when he confronts him in real life, that made a certain amount of sense to me. So I like those clues things that he finds out.
Yeah, me too. And the theme of a parent not really knowing their child, I thought that was not overplayed. I thought it was plausible, realistic, and I really connected with both sides because we get a little visibility, again, all through screen time, because it turns out she likes to use an app to communicate with other people that may or may not be close friends, but this whole idea of making friends online, and he gets kind of into her history of how she communicates with people that aren't him, and so he gets to see her in a new light, and I thought all of that really worked, and I almost like teared up in some of the scenes in this movie. I thought it was actually really, really quite sweet as he was discovering his daughter in a new way, even though this is a tragedy that he's working through. I guess there is the ending, and maybe we don't need to get there yet. You tell me what else we need to talk about. But
I'm ready to go to the ending.
Okay. I have thoughts, Logan, as you might suspect.
Okay.
It worked, and it worked well. I do want to say the twists and turns maybe there was one too many. But in the end, I don't know how I would necessarily do it better. And now that I'm past the movie and I'm thinking about it end to end, it is the story it is, and it makes perfect sense to me. And I think it's fine. We started the conversation with plausibility, and was that the word we used, or used a different word?
Yeah, plausibility.
Yeah, and by the end of it, I was less happy with the plausibility of all these moving pieces coming together like they did. But then I just got to let go of that, because the story itself functioned really well, and I was really connected with the characters, and I'll just leave it there.
Well, I'll pick up what you're putting down and maybe even go a little further with the baton.
Okay.
I was not happy with the final twist. Not only is it like, wait, that's how this all went down, but just as much it's like, wait. Assuming that did go down, how do we go from like suspicions about this thing to proving it to the point where the police bought into it, and then it just sort of wrapped up, and there could have been like a whole other story, even if I'm granting the fact that this is how it went down, but it's just like, oh yep, okay, well, we figured it out. Just all these other things that could be obstacles in and of themselves, we're just gonna walk through those. So I think it was wrapped up too neatly, and I found it a little implausible, and that actually made me like the movie a little less.
Yeah, I think that's your half star there between us, because I don't disagree with everything you're saying. I guess I just let it be what it is, but it did get kind of Hollywood and clean at the end, and less plausible and realistic in that final act, as compared to a lot of the legwork they did to make it seem like something that's just real up until that point. So I guess spoiler free here, so keep that in mind. People may or may not like the ending like the rest of the movie, but it's a little bit of a, I don't know if I want to say it's a tonal shift, because it's about the same tone in a way. It's just that the beats, the story itself takes some liberties.
Yeah, I think so. So one more question for you. What kind of movie do you think this is? I mean, it's, at first I thought it was going to maybe be a little bit more thriller, even toward horror. But as I watch it, it has some of those beats, but I'm not sure that's what I would call the movie. I mean, I wouldn't call it comedy, or really quite like I think of when I think of a drama.
I think mystery suspense.
Mystery suspense. All right, fair enough.
I called it mystery suspense missing person, but that's maybe too many adjectives.
Oh, did you say that in your mini review? Maybe I wasn't thinking of my question when I was listening. So okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think it does a good job in that category as a kind of a unique spin on it. It's I don't know if this is an essential movie or something that's going to be on lists at the end of the year, but I liked it. I'm still thinking about it. I actually liked it quite a bit.
All right, and I liked it fine.
All right, good.
Okay, well, let's get to some mini reviews here. I think I want you to hit us with one first, Bob. Lay us a mini review.
All right, I want a mini review. Set It Up. This is a Netflix movie. The premise is cute, and the main couple is all millennial adorable with 2018 quirks and charm, but this is squarely in the formulaic and predictable rom-com category, complete with silly caricature side characters. 3.5 out of 5 stars, Logan. So I decided to watch this movie because I heard about it on a podcast that you recommended to me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they were gaga for it for some reason,
Yeah.
as like Netflix doing original content that couldn't be done elsewhere. And I'm like, oh, I want to hear about that, or I want to experience that. So this is like a rom-com that couldn't make it to theaters particularly. And now that I've seen it, I'm like, yeah, I can see why maybe it didn't. I mean, it's good, but it's cutesy and it's
very young adult like.
Yeah. And it's just very polished. It's on the one hand, it's polished, so it's trying to be like and this isn't the first time this has happened. It's trying to be a When Harry Met Sally for the new generation, but it's not quite there. And the premise is, which is actually pretty clever. These are two executive assistants to high-powered people, and they're both working for assholes, and they end up running into each other and realizing, like, if they hook up their assholes, then they can get more free time, because then their asshole bosses will be off doing what asshole bosses do when they're in relationships instead of working 24/7. I thought that was clever. but that cleverness only gets you so far. Then you have to execute on it. And then that's the premise of the actual couple not knowing that they're the couple, you see, Logan, because they're just, quirky friends trying to set up this other couple. So that's where this movie goes. And then, spoiler alert, it's really about the two cutesy millennial assistants getting together. It's fine. It's adorable. I really enjoyed parts of it, but it's ultimately not amazing. And also, I will say, I don't like movies that promote assholery as like a winning characteristic. And this movie does that a little bit, because in the end, there's a lot of, and I'm not spoiling anything, there's a lot of like, yeah, if you think about it, yeah, our bosses are assholes, but they're really teaching us a lot. And I want to be like, no, they're still just complete assholes. So I had disagreements on that tone, but maybe that's just me. So
well, it's interesting because like any Steve Jobs movie maybe, or like Succession, maybe they sort of have the idea that maybe it's necessary, but something you have to live with, and maybe you don't have to live with it, but it just comes together all the time. But even those things don't usually say it's a good part of success.
Right. And if they say it, it's more subtle and it's earned. This movie did not earn its promotion of assholery, so I'm just giving that as a ding.
All right. Well, I want to do a mini review. I'm going to do Crazy Rich Asians, which I saw this week.
Nice.
Partly in preparation because we're going to do it on the spoiler cast. So if you want to hear us really get into it, feel free to tune into spoiler cast later this week. But in the meantime, I got a mini review.
Yeah.
And here it is. There are some delightful looks into the distinctiveness of Asian culture, but the headline is how traditional a romantic comedy this is. 3.5 out of 5 for me.
You didn't love it? How dare you?
No. What can I say? It was certainly pleasant. I mean, Constance Wu is a great romantic lead. Henry Golding is pretty meh as the man. He's got the English, Oxbridge sort of accent, which I guess some people find charming enough, but that's about all he had. But as I was thinking about it, I'm not sure he's even really the counter lead. I think it's really maybe a romance between Rachel, played by Constance Wu, and Henry's mom, Eleanor, played by Michelle Yeoh. That's like the real romance that has to occur. So yeah, and Michelle Yeoh was much better as Eleanor.
Yeah, she was great. In fact, I'm going to be a dick for inserting this in your mini review, but I feel like in a lot of ways, Constance Wu, she had a hard time keeping up with all of these gorgeous Asians all around her, and I could see why in some ways.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of glitz and glamour. That can be kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's a very glossy picture of Chinese culture in Singapore, but there are some fun double clicks on some things like making dumplings or the way the mom rules the household and the family. So I felt like it gave me a little bit of an education, but if you're hoping to pretend like you know all about Chinese culture from this movie, I'm sure you're going to be woefully disappointed, but it gave us
Well, you do get to see Singapore a lot more than you ever get to see it in a movie. I did like that. But anyway, I'll save my thoughts for the spoiler cast, but I think I disagree with you. I think you should like this movie more, Logan.
All right. Disagree about how much I like it. That's
I don't know where that came from, but I think I just want to tease the spoiler cast, and that's how I decided to do it.
So we will get into it. Sounds like you can already get a little taste of the juice that we'll have when we do it.
That's right.
Anyway, so Crazy Rich Asians, I thought it was just fine. If you want to see it, go see it. Do you have another mini review for us, Bob?
Yeah, just one more quickly. I want a mini review, Ali Wong, Hard Knock Wife. So Ali Wong's a comedian, and this is her second show as a pregnant comedian. That's kind of her, I don't want to call it a gimmick because maybe that'll get me in trouble, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, she gets on stage super pregnant and then talks about life as a comic and as a woman and as a parent and that sort of thing. Here's my mini review. Let's start there. Ali is sometimes funny, sometimes gross and funny, and sometimes just gross. For me, the ratio of those three is a bit off to recommend this outright, but caveats aside, an enjoyable comedy special, 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is, I want to say comedies maybe are more subjective than even movies, but don't hold me to that. I don't want to make it a meta statement too strongly. But I laughed some, and even when she was gross, like I said, it can be funny, but then sometimes she's just like I'm a woman and I'm gross like you men, but I'm going to do it even more to show you that it's gross. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't just make it funny by default, you know? And she leaned into that a little too much to the point where I was starting to get like, maybe bored's not the right word, but sort of antsy, like, all right, get on with it. You have like material now, like, but when she was funny and she was pretty insightful in a lot of ways about her perspective. So I don't feel like I want to recommend it, but I can't say that it's not something that a lot of people would enjoy, and it's a good comedy special. So maybe I'll just leave it there.
All right, you've been doing the comedy specials lately, and I got to admit, it's on maybe it's almost like a 1.5 star off the top for me, just because for whatever reason, comedy specials, I don't know, they don't do it for me.
Well, it's a lot of single camera on one person, right? I mean,
Well, I don't know
that's maybe okay. So I don't want to minimize your concerns with it, but I think compared to other storytelling, I can see why maybe
for whatever reason, not my thing. I can
definitely this one's not for you, I don't think.
Okay. Well, good to know. Okay, well, let's get to some weekend picks as we hit the home stretch here. I've actually got a couple. September means TV is going to start coming back, and we've got the one I first want to mention is Mayans MC.
Oh.
I don't know if it's going to be great, but it's like a spin-off a couple years after the fact of Sons of Anarchy.
Oh.
So, I mean, Sons of Anarchy, my mini review was a highly flawed show with a couple superlative elements. That's what I think of Sons of Anarchy. And Mayans is by the same people. I think it's Kurt Sutter again. Yeah, because I'm not 100% sure about that. But it's in the same universe with some of the same characters. Edward James Olmos is going to be in there, who I like. And so that's coming back. Or not coming back, but that universe is coming back. That's Tuesday on FX. I just thought I'd point it out. I'll probably be checking it out.
Okay.
The other one I wanted to mention is Sunday on HBO, The Deuce is coming back for season 2. And I watched part of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I should catch up. That's the James Franco playing brothers one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people really liked it last year. I liked what I saw, but I hadn't finished it. But that's the other one that I want to point out. So it's coming back. Did you watch The Deuce at all last year?
I didn't. I was interested, and there's a part of me that's even more interested now. But there's so much going on. It's on the list though. We'll see.
All right. Well, sounds good. That's what I wanted to highlight with weekend picks. Let's talk movies, Bob.
All right, movies still kind of slim pickings as we're getting into the fall season. There's this horror movie that I don't think either of us care about. I mean, we've been over this a million times. Horror is just not our thing on this show. But The Nun, and I've seen previews for it, and I feel like I've seen enough. I could ask you if you're interested, but I'm pretty sure you're not.
I mean, Demian Bashir, I kind of like, okay, but I don't think that he puts it over the top for me.
Right. And I'm just mentioning it because there's just not very many picks out there, generally speaking. The other wide release movie that I think we need to bring up is Peppermint. Now, there are no reviews in for this. This is a rated R action thriller starring Jennifer Gardner, who wakes up from a coma, finding out that her husband and daughter have been killed in a tragic and brutal attack on them by, I guess, gang violence of some kind. And then, she trains over the next few years and then does the vigilante justice thing. Basically, the problem with these sorts of movies is what I just summed up is what the movie is going to be. And I don't know that I'm going to learn much about myself or humanity from that. Maybe that's an overstatement of dismissalness, but how do you feel about it?
I mean, when I've seen the previews, it seems a little tame. I don't know if tame is the right word, but just wow. I don't know. I meant tame figuratively, but tame literally means something here. So let me change adjectives to I don't know, by the book maybe.
I see. Okay, I see what you mean by tame now. Okay.
However, Jennifer Garner, we all grew to love her in Alias. I mean, she's done action hero before, so I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm on the fence. But if it ended up going by and watch something else, I think I could probably sleep at night.
Yeah. So I mean, that's really it. I think you and I were going to have to go back. Well, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on Peppermint. I mean, if it's the next thing since sliced bread. Of course, we'll see it, but at this point, it doesn't seem like it's necessary for the people to know about from us. So we might go back and see Operation Finale or one of these other movies that's come out in the last couple of weeks as we're waiting for the fall lineup to hit.
All right. I'm looking forward to Oscars movie season, which should be right around the corner for us.
Yep.
Well, there you go. It's TV, it's movies, it's Practical Culture. There's some picks for you to go forth and watch. And that's this week's episode of Practical Culture. Join us next week as we review, who knows, maybe Peppermint, maybe Operation Finale. But we will have the usual interviews and weekend picks. You can find more from us at practicalculture.com and in your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bob's at Bob Caswell. Send us a message, ask us a question, let us know, hey, like the show. Get out there and watch some TV and movies, people. Play some video games. It's good for you. Thanks for rocking with us.
Have a good one. All right.